So we are live. I can see it might be a bit slow to get going because people don't know how to go live. I haven't really done it too often, but if you can hear me and you can hear the sound as well, I'll just open that filter. That'll be handy to know. Just make it a little bit bigger on here. Let's make that a smidge bigger so you can see a lot more. Let's see if we can get away with one more. Yeah. Okay, so let's have a look. You can hear the synth fine. That's great. Perfect. Right, thank you for that. Let's crack on. Let's make some sounds. I'm not going to do too much talking, but I'll respond to any of the chats as well. But like I said, I am just working here. It's a lovely sunny day outside. A little bit cooler, but here I am sat in the dark in the studio creating awesome sounds for you guys and just in general. So I haven't done a pack for Diva. I have done one for the Patreons. On the Patreon side of it, there is, I think there's 20 leads and 20 plucks, or did I do 20 leads? I can't remember. I've just released it anyway. But there are 20 leads on there. So I'm designing a specific pack now for release on the website as well if you are not Patreon supporters. So one of my favourite sounds on here, apart from the digital, which is obvious for trance, I like the dual VCOs, just with the option of having two saw waves, we can detune them, but then we can do some special little bits in the tuning section, in the trimmer section, sorry, to make it a little bit more like a super saw or a very much more original trancey sound. So that's what I'm just building here now. I'm just making headway on the initial sound. Right, so I'm going to start with some stacking on here. I'm going to do 4 and 16. So we've got 16 voices, 4 layers of 16 voices essentially. Okay, trimmers. So this is the little trick that I like to do with this section, which is using the stacking tune here. So we've only got 2 voices, we've just got 2 saws. Slightly detuned here, you can see by 0.6 up there at the top. And I've chosen the second analog shape. It's just a little bit sharper, hits a little bit harder. Usually you go into these voice detune sections here and you detune each voice as it goes through. We can have that option, but these are the ones I'm looking for in this sound. So I'm just going to play this little MIDI over a few bars. if you I'm getting these sort of like micro controls, I am using the precise method, which is holding shift on the keyboard. Is for Mac anyway. And you can see just offsetting them, we've got a little bit of a Superstore style thing, so let's just open. Okay, let's just remove some of those. Right, let's have a quick look at a question. So do you know how many presets are going to be in the bank? So this is going to be, it's going to be 20 as usual. I'm going to sell them as separate banks because when I make these sort of like bigger banks like 64 and 128, people are more reluctant to buy them in some cases, not all, because they just want the leads or they just need some bases and they don't want to buy everything else because you know that a lot of packs come out. I'm not trying to diss anyone here, but there's a lot of packs that come out and you can hear that there's a lot of filler presets in there, and sometimes they're useful, but sometimes I found that a lot of them are not useful and I end up deleting a lot of them and just keeping the ones that I want. It's all part of it, and it's not like they're expensive or anything, but I like to release them so that you can get use out of all 20. And then as with the Vital series, which was very popular, by the way, releasing them all separately so you can still choose, but you can also buy the sort of like the collection at a bit of a discounted rate, like it's a permanent discount. So that works a lot better for me, for you, and just makes life easy for everyone. Like if they just want the leads, they can just buy them. So this is going to be 20, and I think unlike the Vital collection, I released them all at the same time. I'm going to release these probably every month or so I can spend time on doing all the other bits that I do as well, because they're quite lengthy projects. So in time, I might stick in a little bit of extra work to get them ready for Black Friday, but we'll see how that goes. Okay, so I think we've got the basis of the sound on that one. Can anyone hear a little bit of distortion on this preset when it's playing? I'm trying to work out if it's my headphones or if it is the actual audio. I'm going to say it is the audio. I haven't even checked my levels here. Let's just bring the mixer up a second. Yeah, we're clipping on the master out. That's why we're getting some clicks and pops. Let's just bring... Don't worry, I'll bring the levels back up for you guys so you can hear. I'm just going to bring them down -9. Then I can control this a little bit better. I think we can get away with -6 maybe. Just going to stick a limiter on there just to save any hassle. Yeah, let's just have the limiter on there just to stop them peaks. Right, cool. That sort of solves that mystery. I was wondering if my headphones were going then. So another thing there, you'll be hearing that I'm playing this MIDI over and over and over. I was looking at the mixer at the time, but try not to do this when you're doing sound design, because you end up designing the sound for that MIDI, and it suddenly becomes increasingly difficult to try and fit it with other sounds that you're creating because you've made it very specific, or you've just developed ear fatigue by having it rolling around. So I kind of switch between having a sort of melody in the background. I've got a few loaded into Cubase, and then I sort of like switch between playing it on the keyboard as well, which is definitely beneficial, especially when you're working for long periods of time. So for those that have just joined, this is the dual VCO on Diva. I'm making some translated presets. We've got two saw waves. We've got it on detune, and I've detuned them by 0.07, an analog 2 shape. And then we're using the voicing section here. So we've got 16 voices and then 4 stacks of 16 voices to get a lot more thickness and weight out the sound. And then we're using the stacking tune here to just offset them. So you can see at the top there, we've got it centered, 0.13, 0.17, 0.13 on that one. So you can offset them how you want, just tailor it up how you need it to sound, and you get this. So if I return them all to 0, let's just have a listen to it again. It's literally just 2 saws slightly detuned here. But by holding shift, we can micro tune these. So I'm going to push them a bit further in opposite directions. Because we've only got 4 stacks here as well. We can't do 5 and 6. Sometimes it doesn't work when you're using this. There we are. That sounds quite nice, having that sort of first stack louder. Okay, let's have a quick look at the chat. I appreciate that, Askar. Thank you for joining, and greetings from the UK. Yep, so we sorted out the audio thing. Thank you for confirming that. I kind of sussed it out when I asked that, but thank you. Yep, and it's most people, or shall I say most tutorials I see, do gravitate towards the digital oscillators for obvious reasons, which we'll go into maybe in another preset, but you can get great results with some of the extra features that they offer you here in Diva. Something that I've not really used too much, and I really should be, because this is cracking for sort of like the classic sound, and you can hear we're getting a very authentic sound from these dual VCOs. So using the analog envelopes, they're a little bit smoother for me. Sometimes we use the digital ones, but we're just using the analog ones really to get that sort of like smoother sound. I'm not looking for something super attacky. I'm not looking for that real bite, but we've got enough there from that shaping. So I'm happy with that preset. I'll come back and tweak these, but we've kind of got one made. So it's now time to start saving our first preset. So I'm going to say this is lead 1, and this is going to be part of the Diva Trans Ultimate Collection. So that's what that is going to mean there. Me, and then I'll fill them in later. So we got the first one. Looks like it says duck lead. So let me know in the chat, which one shall I use next? Shall I do another dual VCO? Shall I use a triple, digital? You pick on that one. In fact, let's just choose triple or digital for the next lead. I'm just going to reset this. So to be honest, I think actually it'd be interesting to hear that in the context of another MIDI file whilst we're waiting. And the MIDI that I'm using is from the Ultimate Uplifting Trance collection, so you can get that particular MIDI out of the Leads pack if you don't already own it. Okay, so let's have a look. Getting a bit of a mix here, triple and digital. What we'll do is we'll do both. We'll jump to digital first, just because we're already on the dual VCO, and then we'll do the triple VCO after that one. So we'll do at least 3 in the hour that I'm online. And that way we can cover both of them as well. And yes, we could use on the triple, we could use some of the squares. We could do a nice little mix possibly in there. A lot of harder leads use a bit of the square in there, especially stuff like basses as well. Like I tend to use squares to sort of get the weight out of the sound. All right, so let's initialize that. Let's go to digital. And this is mimicking, obviously you can't see because the camera's not working. That's another reason why you can't see me. I do have the JP8000 next to me, and this really does pay homage to the JP8000. I know there's dedicated plugins out there for it, but to have it in something that I already own is super useful, because I can then sort of like cross examine them to see how it's performing, and it is pretty good. Right, so with this digital oscillator, I'm going to use the cascade filter again to mimic the filters of the JP8000, and we're going to use the digital envelopes on this one. For those that don't know, I've got another video coming out that's going to be covering this, but we're doing that in Spire. What I do typically with a lot of leads is start with the decay, and I explain that in the video, so I'm not going to explain it here. But just to get a little bit of snap out the start of the sound, and I sort of design it backwards from how I want it to hit to how I want it to sound in the full body. Okay. Seem to be getting a lot less volume from this. Let me just check. Okay, so we have 2 sections here. This is the second sort of like oscillator. We have the first one here. You can see they are both selected on super saw at the top, called multi-saw really on here. And we can detune and multi on this one. So on, I'm just looking over at the JP8000, we have the, I can see it on here. Yeah, we have the detune and mix controls. Couldn't remember what that was called on there. This is the mix control. So set at this is what they sound like. And then for now, I'm just going to set the mix to this one only. So I'm going to go for a full mix, and then I'm going to bring in that detune and sort of balance it out to where I'd like the sound. And then do the same for this one. So setting that decay there is giving me the snap on the front of the sound, and then I bring the sustain up to sort of give it the body, and then we can work on the release and add some effects on after to give it a bit of context. So they're sort of like the starting blocks when I'm doing stuff like this. and where needed we can use some of these. I tend to use the high pass post more than anything, just to clean out the lows a little bit, because we don't want too much coming through. Sometimes it just requires stage 1, but sometimes up to 3, depending on what you're doing. I'm going to go for 1. Okay, so you've noticed that I click sync there as well, just to make sure the 2 oscillators are synced to get the maximum out of this sound. Now we have a slightly different way of working this. So instead of using the trimmers and the stacking tune on this one, I'm going to go through the voice detuning on here. So I'm just going to use 2 stacks. I'm going to use 16 voices, so we've got a nice thick sound. And what we can do here, if you're not familiar with it yourself or you don't fully understand it, these are voice triggers. So if I'm hitting a key here, you can see at the bottom here, we've got these lights that trigger. And they're picking those individual tunings at random, or in sequence, should we say, in this case, and that gives you the ability to get that more analog vibe out of this. So we can sort of offset the detunings like this, so we could go really sort of like hard pan left and right. So we just get a different, you're not going to hear anything initially, it's more that the positioning of the starting of the note is going to change. It's just going to give you that more authentic feel. So I'm just going to offset these at random for now. You can see they are totally random, and we've got 2 stacks in here like that. So I'm just going to offset some, maybe leave some where they are, and that just gives it a little bit more of something that's happening with the voice drift. It's just giving you more randomization. That's the word I'm looking for. It's difficult sometimes when you're actually doing this on the fly and not pre-recording stuff. So I always change the LED colour to blue as well. Obviously that's the brand colour. And then you do have the options then to widen the sound. So that's one of the stages that I'll go through. And you can also choose whether you want some of the phases to reset. Now in this case, I don't want any to reset, but if you wanted something that had to hit in exactly the same spot, which was going to give you a more centered sound. So one of the oscillators you could have centered, so it will stay less stereo. It's difficult to describe. I'll just do this. So if I just pan this to the left, so we're just getting oscillator 1. So now you can hear that the sound is triggering in the same spot. It's not actually sounding wide anymore. It's quite centered, and it's hitting in the same phase spot. And then if we turn that off, it's not. It's not the best example with this particular sound, but that's what we're controlling with the phase reset there. So sometimes that's what I'll do, but not all times. But what we need to do now is to make that a bit thicker. Let's go into the amplifier section on the main page, down to stack index, and then we can use this control as a width control now. So the way that I like to balance this out, not all the time do I keep the effects on within the synth, and I don't put them on whilst I'm designing the sound because that overrides what you're doing. However, sometimes I'll put on the reverb before I do the stack indexing and the width, so I can hear what that's going to do and how it's going to contribute to the effects. So if we put the plate on, I'm just going to turn this off for now. Gonna get this set up. I always put a little bit of pre-delay on, so if you don't understand why I'm putting pre-delay on, you spend so much time getting your synth with plenty of attack, and then you stick reverb and it just sits on the attack and smooths it off again. It sort of undoes everything that you've done up here. So just having a bit of pre-delay makes sure that the reverb triggers after the note has hit, so you just get a little bit more attack coming through. So you can hear how much width is coming out of that already. Cool. Right, I'm going to shape the second envelope now, which is controlling the cutoff. Cool. Right, so I think we've got another sound there. I'm trying to keep it as basic as possible, but these sounds are some of like the traditional sounds that you would pull from Diva. Let's have a look at some of this on the comments. Welcome, Hamad. Thank you very much. I'm glad to hear that you're a huge fan. Great to have you on board. Thank you. Is it Mikhail? Is that how you pronounce your name? I'm sure you'll correct me if that's incorrect, but thank you very much. Yes, it's something that I've always done since I started doing sound design and music production. I always worked on melodies, and I think I worked on them too much, to the point, as you can see, I don't really release too much music, but I am working on sort of reversing that now. Now that I've got everything set up that I like to do. Hamad, thank you. Arpologist. That's actually quite an interesting title. I might even add that to my little bio on the website. Arpologist. That's pretty good. Aop Anonymous. Like Michael in English. Right, sorry for that. Yeah, so thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. Right, cool. So we've got another sound there. Let's do a triple VCO next, I reckon. I'm going to save it with the filter open, I think, on that one. So this, I've already forgot what I've called the pack. Diva Trance Uplifting Collection. And that is lead 2. Cool, we have another one. So we're going to now look at using a triple VCO. Hi Sebastian, thank you. Long time fan, that's great to see. Thank you for the support. I do appreciate every single one of you that have been supporting since the early days and sort of working through and getting better along with me. That's still what the channel's main goal is, to share what I'm learning. There's a lot of things that I don't know in depth, and that's why I sort of bring videos. It's been a bit quiet on the videos, but I am working on some things that will show you some of the struggles that I've had, along with maybe something to do with working with Adam Ellis. So that's going to be something in the works, but that will be coming at some point. Okay, triple VCO. Let's use analog envelopes. Feel free to use a mixture of any of them, but I'm going to use the analog ones in this one. I'm going to go for the multi-mode on this one. Okay, so I don't use the triple VCO too much, but we're gonna make this the best that we can. So for now, I'm just going to turn the volumes of all of them down, noises down. Let's just have oscillator 1. We'll start with 2 saws, and we'll have more of a square signal on there as requested. And then we can use these detunes here just to mix them through. Let's bring them in. So just a little bit to get started. Okay, this could be the start of a good sound here. And we're going to do the same thing down with the trimming section down here in a minute as we did with the Dual. Let's just get these envelopes set up. So I'm just listening to the release there, just making sure that I've got it where I think it should be at the moment. We're going to set up let's just set 2 stacks, and we'll use 8 voices for this one. So we're going to have a little bit more release on there, because with the multi one, I think you can just push the resonance a little bit further due to its characteristics, and it just gives you a nice flavour to the sound. All right, so let's jump into the trimmers again. Just before we do this, let's have a look, see what is going on. Cool. That's fine. I'm not expecting a ton of people to be joining because I don't do live streams too often, but if you do enjoy this, it'll be fantastic to do some more of these, because it can get quite a lonely job, you know, just doing these sort of sound designs on your own, sat in a dark studio, editing switches and sliders. That's essentially what I do, but I do love doing it. All right, let's get back to this stacking tune. I'm going to stack these tunes, so we've only got 2 stacks in this case, so we're only looking at 1 and 2. We'll make a decision whether we need 3. So I've already made the decision. We are going for 3, so I can just have one centered, which is going to be this one. So they're back in their center positions, and they're back where they were. Sounds much better in my opinion. That's sounding good. I'm just wondering if we should do a little bit of stack index in here. Okay. So in this case, I'm going to put on a little bit of delay. I'm going to go for a higher cutoff there. Okay, so I'm going to bring a little bit of noise into this as well, I think, but for the first part I'm just going to check that I've got everything where I want it for the cutoff. bring the sustain down a bit, I think. Want it a bit more plucky. So I'm just going to loop some on the other page. That's a bit faster than this. So I think this is a good time to address the cutoff. I see a lot of questions. This comes through quite a lot in terms of getting the cutoff to work at its full range. And the short answer is you don't need to make it work at its full range. As you can see, the sound is pretty much open filtered at that point, and it's not even at the top. So just use the range that it offers. It never really sits perfectly all the time, but you can do it in certain synths. But with stuff like this, you don't need to have that full range. Just work with it. And if it closes down too much, like down here, you can just open up the envelope here that is shaping the sound so it's a little bit brighter. But sometimes I like to have the filter just totally remove the sound so you've got full control. And if you don't want it to, say you're in the context of a track, say you don't want it this closed, just bring your filter up to where you want it to start and then automate from that point. So it just gives you the option to have the full range, because every track is different from track to track. So you don't want everything just being super specific every time, because it means that you have to go in and edit things. And if you're not familiar with synths, then you're never going to edit them. And then you're going to go out and buy another pack to try and get that same sound. And that's really why I make my tutorials, so that you can edit these sounds. This is probably one of the bigger things in music production. Knowing your way around a synth is going to help you greatly. You don't have to understand how it's programmed, but just understand things that you can tweak to make it better or stop it jumping in and out of phase, all them sort of things. You can do them directly in the synth. So filters, don't worry if it doesn't open all the way on the slider. As long as the filter opens, that's all that matters. Then this one, I'm going to actually put on some phasing. So I'm going to use the stoned type, slow the rate down a bit, or mix it in. So I'm turning the wet mix down. Give it some classic trance vibes. So I'm going to mix it in just gently, just to give it a little bit of movement in the background and give it a different vibe. So each preset needs to sound, doesn't need to, but it's better if it sounds and has a different tonal quality, so then you've got the ability to sort of layer these up if you need to, and get that sound. But there we are, that is a triple VCO. We've actually got a square in there as requested. We can change all little different parameters there, so if you don't like it being a little bit deeper, you can just bring it up an octave. I think it gives it tons of weight there, it sounds really nice. And then if you really want to get advanced, I'm not going to do it in this particular preset, you can use an LFO to sort of like shift things like this around, so it's sort of like wavering between a square and a saw, just to give it a little bit more drift if you wanted to give it that sort of name. I'm not sure if you can actually do that in here because I'm not fully familiar with the ins and outs of this, but enough to obviously build some great sounding presets. Triple VCO, do we like the triple VCOs? Do we like that sound? So let's have a look over here. Hey Alan, great to see you on here. Hey Michael, when you get to this sort of world, you realise it gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and you end up realising there's a lot of people that are very sort of like into the same thing but doing it very differently. And I think that's why we need to have many tutors that you can follow just so you can get people's different sort of like views on things, because sometimes it's not necessarily wrong, but it might not align with the way you learn, if you know what I mean. So it just gives you a little bit more width on your knowledge. I agree, Alan. Yeah, Diva, it's something that I've not used too much. I've had it for a while, but I've been hyper focused on getting things like the Vital collection and stuff done. It's time to start working on Diva and probably some more stuff as well. But you'll probably know just as much as me how, I don't even know what I'm saying now, how much of the workload that you can have on. So you kind of put things to the side, and Diva unfortunately was one that was put to the side, but not anymore. Don't worry, Michael. No, I wasn't saying it like that. It's great to have people on board doing the same thing, and we're all at different points in our sort of like careers and building everything that we do. So we learn things from different people in different ways. And I've learned stuff from Alan. I've learned stuff from Adam Ellis and many other people, including non-trance artists. It's handy to watch quite a wide variety of topics because it really does improve you as a producer, tutor, sound designer, all that good stuff. I think I've got time for one more. I was just doing this as a test. I'm just wondering, I should actually save this before we go any further. I've still forgotten the name of my own pack. Demis... I can't even remember what I called it now. It was that Trans Uplifting Collection. Diva Trans Uplifting Collection, that's the one. Like I say, I'm sort of like doing these presets. I sort of go through, make a blanket set of presets, and then I'll come back and sort of like trim them up, or even just throw them out and start again. So that's how I work anyway. Let's build one more. Probably nicer to have a different MIDI patch in there. Again, if you weren't around earlier, don't worry, stream is still running. I was saying don't use MIDI on sort of repeat, because you sort of like train your brain to hear only that MIDI, and then you start designing the sound for that pattern, and you can run into all sorts of like ear fatigue issues. I have no idea what this MIDI is. Let's have a look. Okay, so again, from the Uplifting Trance Collection, the Leads pack, if you want the MIDI, that is over there. Shameless plug. Okay, I think we should do another style of digital on here. Let's do something a little bit different. Let's go for a cascade. So I'm going to go for an analog envelope on the master envelope, but then for the filter I'm going to use a digital, just so I can get some of the clicks and pops that you can get from it, because they are desirable to some people. If they're not, you can just obviously change up the envelope, or you can shift this back, because you can see here the attack is sort of here by default, but you can drag it down a little bit more and just get a little bit more sharpness out of it. Very similar to Vital. You can simulate some of the clicks and pops that you get with older synths. Cool. So let's utilize this new MIDI. And I tend to design these separately sometimes before I'm actually listening to them. At this stage I have no idea what I'm creating. Okay, so we've got a thinner sound on the second and a thicker on the left, should we say, on the first one. Let's do a 24 dB on this one. Let's do a 4 stack on this one, just to get a little bit of power out of that. So what I'm doing with this one is just trying to get a little bit of a different tone out of this in terms of how the filter reacts. So sometimes the sort of like the lead might sound very similar, but it's got its character depending on how you set up the filters, like what dB slope do you use, how much resonance is used in there, and how the envelope shapes this as well. And we do have other options in here to shape that as well. I'm going to keep it relatively simple. Okay, let's jump into the trimmers. So I think here, let's change that to blue. Keep the brand color going. Stack tune. Let's just give it a shot, see if it actually needs this. Right, so it's going to be very, very sensitive. Just get these back. So don't forget, hold shift if you've only just joined. Just going to bring the detune down a bit on that first one. We're liking that where that is going at the moment. Let's just have a quick ear rest. Yep, totally agree, Alan. Everybody is just constantly learning. And just for transparency, everyone, I've bought one of Alan's tutorial series. So it's a case of you're always going to learn something from someone else every time. There's no question about it. If you think you know everything, then that's when you're going to always hit that brick wall and you're never really going to progress. If you can't admit that you can't do something, but someone else can, then you're never going to get anywhere. So you always learn little bits and bobs, if not a lot, from some people. Yeah, I reckon. Yeah, it does, just moving them slightly off, giving them just giving them that little sort of analog twist. Yeah, it's definitely, I found that, what was I doing now? I think it was Vital, because obviously, you know, I use Vital a lot for my sort of like one-to-one tutorials and stuff. Doing the detuning on there actually works really well in some cases for getting that analog feel, because Vital is quite difficult to get the analog feel sometimes because it's not dedicated to doing that job. But actually offsetting the fine tune does add and enhance it to make it a little bit more analog, is what we're getting at there. Does it sound a little bit too stabby, or do we like the sound of that one? Oh, yes, sorry, Alan. Yes, I know what you mean. These ones. Yeah, I was just doing it in a previous preset. So yeah, we'll do that again in this one just for those that are joining now. So these ones here are the ones, so they'll randomize, further randomize your notation. So when you're pressing a key, you're going to get a slightly different position, and it's just going to give it that more analog feel, because as we know, analog gear was never perfect like we do have now in soft synths. So with these move up in quite large increments again. So if you hold shift, you can just shift them around, and you can sort of like build them up. If you don't know what you're listening for here, it's better to go with the extremes. You're still not going to hear something defined, but you're going to hear that your preset sounds a lot better and a lot more authentic when you're shifting these around. So you can do them incrementally in points, or you can go with the shift and you can move them in exact positions if you really want to get finicky with it. So I'm just going to shift these around a little bit. And you can just truly do these at random. It just comes to a point where you might hear that you just need to tweak them a little bit because of the way it sits. But some of them I'll leave straight up. Some of them will be hard panned like this. But I like to do micro movements when I'm doing stuff like this. So whilst I'm talking, I have no idea how that is going to be, but I've just tweaked them up there. Let's just move these ones. I'm just going to give them all different values. It's probably something for a separate tutorial where I can sort of show you a little bit more in depth. Okay, let's have a look at the chat. What did I say about Vital? I was just talking, let's just quickly load this up. Instrument. So nowhere near as complex, but what I was getting at here is if we make a random supersaw, we have a lot of control in terms of the unison visually on here. So we've got 10 and 7 voices, and as this MIDI is playing, let's just put that on there. You can hear the sound quality difference here. I'm not saying it's bad, but it has a very different vibe. With this, what we are looking at for the different sort of textures is we can change the unison power in the middle to change up how the voices are bunched. So are they more evenly spread? Are they more to the center, more to the edges? That gives you a lot of tweaks. But what we were saying about the twizzling the fine tune is shifting these slightly left and right, as well as detuning your voices there, and it just sort of gives you that little bit more of an analog feel. And when you use them in conjunction with things like the randomizers that are shifting, let's say the fine tune, or you could do the master tune down here, it's just going to give you a more analog feel, because you're trying to simulate something that drifts in and out of tune. It's not perfect like we can get with these sort of digital synths. And just secondly, just so you can see this, you can also spread voices using these. So if you're using a wavetable, for example, let's just use one sort of square. So this one here moves into a square position. You can actually detune using the table spread, so it'll actually spread the voices out across the wavetable. So some of the voices we're pulling from here, some will be from here, depending on how extreme you go. So you get a little bit of a blend of the whole wavetable. So it's another extra layer of making it sound a little bit more analog, because you're pulling from different areas. And as long as you leave that phase on random, should we say, that is going to give you more play with your analog sound. Anyway, let's get rid of that. We're not looking at Vital today. Let's try this with the mod wheel. I think I'm preferring that with the 12. Gives it a bit more weight and warmth when the filter's closed. Again, it's personal preference, but that's what I'm looking for, I think. Okay, so I think for now we'll leave it at that. There's so much more we can do with this. Yeah, there's so much more. I'm ending up actually talking and doing more tutorial style stuff here on the live instead of just sort of like making sounds and going through it. But you're asking some good questions here on the chat with stuff like this. If you want to see some more tutorials on Diva, I'll be happy to start working a little bit more frequently on stuff like this. But there's all other bits and bobs. But this is what I'm going to be focusing on for the next couple of months, working with this. So if you have any things that you want to share, appreciate Alan jumping in and sharing some little tips using the controls for offsetting the detune and the randomization of phase points and all that sort of stuff. But we've made 3 sounds there, I think. If we just look in our sets, yeah, we've made 3 sounds. This is our 4th, I think. I don't think I've named this. Just wait for that to pop up. Yeah, we haven't done this yet. So there we are. I'm going to end the live stream. I've actually got to nip out, but it was just a trial really to make sure I've got everything set up and you could hear and see everything. Camera's caused a bit of an issue, but we'll get that sorted so it can actually record for long periods of time, because when you're doing recordings it just overheats this particular camera, so I might get something different for live streaming. Anyway, thank you for joining. I'll check out the comments one last time on here. Let's have a look. Yeah, Dennis, I get that. Spire is a very good sounding synth. I am working on some stuff like that as well with Spire, but I'm focusing heavily on Diva at the moment. And June 3, I kind of know that inside out now. After working with the guys at Synapse Audio, they've given me some good insight into what they've done and how they've sort of emulated the synths that they targeted, and they're doing very well with their new Hans Zimmer The Legend version. That is pretty sweet, but I haven't got around to using it yet in the context of electronic music. Yeah, I've not tried the AI out in Spire yet. Is it any good? It's something I'm interested in AI, but at the same time I'm sort of keeping an arm stretch on it. Not because I'm feeling pushed away by AI, that it's going to take our jobs and stuff like that. It's just more the content. I don't know. It just doesn't seem something that I'm interested in at the moment. I'm super interested in AI, just not on the synths. But is it any good? What does it do? I've not even looked it up yet. I've been sent a few messages about it, but it'd be interesting to probably maybe do that on a live stream and just discover it as well. Right, cool. So with that, I'm going to jump off. I'm going to get cracking. Thank you to everybody that's joined. That's it's really nice actually to see. There's 29 of you watching currently. It's really handy to know that people are going to be around. I'll give you more notice for longer streams, and we'll create a track or something. I don't know. We'll do something, but just to do something fun. All right, Dennis. Well, good luck with using it. I'll have a look at it at some point. I might even have a look this weekend. I've already got the download for it. Yeah, I did a video on ChatGPT, following the instructions there. Apparently you can get a little bit more deeper than what I did, but I didn't go down that route. So maybe it was a popular video, but I'm trying to keep everything sort of linear, so you're learning things rather than me just randomly looking at stuff. But they are interesting and they do get views, so I might do some more. You're just putting the washing away. That's awesome. It's everybody's got the stuff to do, haven't they? Not everybody can tune in and just sit there and watch, but by all means, listen and learn by listening. That's fine. No problem. No problem, Dennis. Dennis, I keep saying my own name there. Dennis. I get it the other way around. They actually call me Dennis. But with that, I am going to jump off here, nip out. I've actually got to go down to the studio today. Hopefully getting a carpet fitted, and then I can be in there shortly. So I'll keep you posted on that. I'm going to be posting those things to Instagram now, not on YouTube. The engagement's great on there, and it's not all about the videos and the engagement, but it just puts a little bit of a wedge between my videos that are coming out. So I'm going to be putting them all on Instagram. So follow me over there. Just search for Demis Helen, it'll pop up. You'll get to see stuff there, and Patreons also get to see some of the behind the scenes stuff, even though I've not put anything on recently, but there will be stuff going on there. Okie dokie. Right, I'll be off. Have a great weekend, and I will see you all in the next video, which will be launching at the end of today at 5 o'clock. I'll see you there.